to the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show. Steve, welcome to Consulting Leaders. Happy to have you.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for the invite.
It is my pleasure. All right, let's jump straight into it. So, what pulled you into the fantastic world, yet sometimes a bit stressful, of executive coaching?
Well, when I left my former career in consumer products manufacturing, I was looking for a new challenge. I didn't know what it was going to be, but I knew that I had a lot of training and experience from my former career that would be beneficial to someone. And through some general networking and reconnecting with people that I hadn't seen in a while, I was introduced to this world of coaching, which I had heard about, but hadn't really done much investigation in. And the more I started looking at it and the parameters of it and why people needed it and what you had to do in order to be successful with it, the more I realized that it was a great match for what I had been doing. I just didn't know what to call it. So I was kind of there. I just need to kind of publicly jump into the arena and declare it. And that's how I got started.
And do you like this arena?
Oh, I love it. I could be looking at a full month of Monday mornings and it wouldn't matter. It's been the greatest career move that I've made in my 40 plus years of being in business.
You know, one of my favorite, how do I call this? I wouldn't call it passion, but something I like to do a lot is to learn new English expressions and use them. And you just taught me another one. Like I could be looking at a month of Monday morning and I wouldn't mind. I like that one a lot. So tell us, now that you're here, what problem do you solve? What do you help your clients achieve?
If you look at just about all of the 1,000 plus business professionals that I've worked with over the last 17 years, and you boiled it down to the single thing that they really needed to figure out, it was what are they doing or how are they approaching things that aren't serving them well? Sometimes we call those blind spots, things that you're comfortable with, things that you have developed kind of a habit for doing, but they really don't get you the outcome you're looking for. And, there's a whole host of those things. Sometimes people just have trouble with effective communication, getting their message across, getting other people to understand it and being willing to work with it. Sometimes it's holding people accountable. You hire people to do a job and at some point you realize they're not really meeting your standard. And now you've got to figure out how to kind of bump them up. But in all cases, whether you own a business or you're an executive in a larger company, your job is to figure out how to mold the resources you have, people, money, time, and get the company where it needs to go. And you can't go by yourself. That's the reason you have a staff of people working for you.
How do the people who need this, you run a business, or you're an executive at a large company, how do you find those people and how do you make sure that they are coachable? Because what you say makes a lot of sense, right? And everybody should want to manage their people better, manage their time better, know where the company is going and how they can help that. But why is it that so many people aren't doing it?
All right, so that's a great question because early on, I fell into the same mindset that a lot of people in my industry fall into, which is you have to get your target list together. You have to get your email marketing together. You've got to buy your lead list. You've got to go out there with all your guns blazing and try to connect with people that you can sell your service to. Okay. And what I realized in doing that, because I just like everybody else, I tried that. what I realized was coaching is not a service that you can really sell. Sure, you can get people to sign up, but are they going to like what they just jumped into and said yes to? A lot of times, no, because they don't really understand what they're saying yes to. So what I realized was, if I'm going to get people to come to me, I've got to be able to put a consistent message out in the internet platforms that I know they're there, they're checking things out, and speak to them in a way that they're saying, yes, I have that problem. Yes, I can't fix that problem. This guy seems to know what my problem is. Let me reach out and call him. And so it's been very much an attraction-based marketing system, laying the field for people to say, yeah, I want to talk to this guy because I can't fix what's not working for me by myself. Now, what I've learned along the way, because a lot of times, you get to know people and you say, hey, gee, I'm just curious. How did you find me? What made you decide to go out looking for me? And what I've found is most of the time, the people who need the coaching are not the ones that initiate the research. The people that initiate the research are the folks in that person's inner circle. It could be his partner. It could be an executive assistant. It could be someone in HR that's closely aligned with that individual. If you're running a small business, sometimes it's your spouse. Over the years, I've had 7 clients that I've brought on board that came to me not because they recognized they needed help, but because their spouse said, you got to do something. I can't live with this anymore.
Mhm.
So it's always somebody that's close enough to them to see what's going on, how they're struggling, how they're getting aggravated, how they're losing their passion for their occupation because they can't get over this problem, but they don't seem to be able to step back and look at it objectively and say, okay, I need to do something different.
Mhm.
Those other folks do, and they're the ones that usually say, have you ever thought about going outside the company and looking for someone to help you through this?
Mhm. So now this is becoming very interesting because the one who is actually benefiting from your coaching is not the one who finds you. But then
Right.
how do you market growth source coaching, Steve? How do you make people, so it's funny because you're not going to have to make people problem aware, because people who are trying to find you so that you can help the people they are working with are already very much problem aware. So it's maybe not that much about education, but probably more around solutions, what's out there, what's possible, and how to take the first steps. So in other words, what has worked for you when it comes to marketing your business so that you can get found by the people who are going to introduce you to the people you're actually gonna end up helping?
Right. Okay. The first thing I realized when I got into this business was there's literally thousands of other people doing the same thing. They could be part of large franchise companies. They could be part of regional professional service companies, which might offer a variety of things, including coaching. Or they could be solo practitioners, one person shows like myself. And so when I realized how many people were already in the market, the next question was, what are these people telling the marketplace? Are they building a persona that people can say, okay, there's a lot of people doing this, but I know what that guy does? So it was building a personal brand awareness that stood for something as opposed to just coaching. Coaching is just a methodology for helping people become aware and being willing to take the risk and spend the energy doing things different to get a different outcome. You're the guide, you're the person that kind of pushes them a little bit, challenges them, keeps them on the road until they reach the outcome they're looking for. But that's just a methodology. Past that, there's all kinds of coaches out there. I mean, they're doing all kinds of different things. So if you've got a business that's struggling, you're not really going to be inclined to get a relationship coach. Okay. You want somebody that's solidly in the same lane as you are, that kind of knows the path that you're trying to go down to help you get there faster or with better outcome. So what I ended up doing was I was like a crazy man. I was out there networking every place. I was going to every meeting I could find. I was accepting every small group talk that I could get into. I was doing a lot of online, types of posting and things like. What I was trying to do was break away from that pack of people out there with no discernible brand, and be able to say, I'm different. This is, if you come to me, this is what you're getting. Okay, I'm a known quantity. And so as I did that, what I started realizing, like most people, some places you go produce great results, and other places you go are a waste of time. So over time, you take this big giant plan where you're doing everything and going everywhere, and you start saying, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore, or I'm not going there anymore. And you just kind of drill it down to a small group of places where you get your best result for your time and your money. And for me, it boiled down to 3 places online: LinkedIn, because that is a business website; YouTube, which I like creating a lot of videos. I have a ton of them on there that talk about different business concepts, and people can kind of get to know me as I'm telling them what I know. And then the one that actually gives me the greatest number of people coming to me wanting to talk about their problem is Google Maps. The little map that has the push pins on it, which is kind of a location-based type service. But I started running hard with that because I realized most of the time when people finally say, yes, I need a coach, they don't have anybody they can ask to get a referral. So what do? They go out on the internet, just like you do for every other thing you want to find out about, and they put in executive coach near me. And when they do that, I pop up on the top of that little map. And I was getting probably 2/3 of the people I would eventually bring on as clients were coming through that portal. So I just started loading that thing up with content, with videos. And, after 12 or 14 years of doing that, Google starts to not just keep you in the market that you've marketed. Like for me, it's Orange County, California. Okay, that's a defined marketing area that you can select. Now you start leaking into other places like Arizona and Nevada and North Carolina, and I mean even overseas. I get people in Canada calling me. So with the amount of consistent posting and quality content over a period of years, your geography just starts to grow.
Okay, you're giving me too many great things to follow up on here, Steve. So you're not making my job easier.
Forgive me.
But I like that. I like that a lot. So talk to me about YouTube. It's not often that I get a guest who is really strong on YouTube. So tell me more about this. Why did you decide? And we're going to get into Google Maps as well because I like it. I think too many people want to be like the one person online, they're like the authority, right? The go-to person, but they forget about their local markets. I'm going to get back to that in a second. But talk to me about YouTube. Why did you decide to go on YouTube? How have you done it so that it brought you results? And give us the secret sauce. That's all I'm asking.
Okay. I'll be happy to. Anybody that I sit with and wants to know how to build a coaching business, I will tell them everything. It's because you know what I've learned? Statistically,
nobody will do it.
No, the population that will actually take notes and go out and try it for themselves is about 8%. The other 92 will say, oh, that's great. I love it. I'm going to do that. And it never happens.
Makes so much sense.
Right. So I can give away the farm all the time and it doesn't matter. Most people aren't going to do anything with it. So hopefully your audience is different. Mm-hmm. The reason I went onto YouTube was because from a formatting standpoint, I realized that, sure, I could write articles. I could do audio podcasts, which I do. But when you're on video, people get the full understanding of who you are as a person. And executive coaching is one of the most personal business relationships you'll ever have. Because when you start to develop that relationship with the client, they're telling you everything. They're telling you stuff you probably don't need to know, but it all goes into the mix of how do I help you help yourself? So the best way I could do that was to start putting myself on YouTube where people could look at me and say, yeah, I could work with that guy, or no, he's a little too much for me. I'm going to go look at, that's fine. The choice is yours, but at least you have the opportunity to see who's actually behind the curtain. Now, I also went on YouTube because YouTube is owned by Google. They are the second most searched, website out there on the planet. So your chance of getting found there is much greater than publishing articles on Tumblr, you know? So that's what I started looking at. If I'm going to spend my time investing in putting myself out in the market, where do I go to get the greatest return without spending so much time tapping into 12 different websites and only getting any kind of marketing result from 2 or 3? So YouTube became it. Now, once I put the channel together, I put a lot of videos out there that later on I came back and deleted because I'm thinking, I don't want anybody to see that. That's too amateurs. But you know what? Everybody goes through that until you figure out your niche, how you come on board and how you talk about things and what resonates with other people, especially the people that you want to do business with. And here's another interesting thing. I kept putting really what I thought was good videos out there, and I get 20 people watching them. Okay, 20 people, that's nothing. So I started looking around for other experts on video SEO. And I ran into a guy that had about a 20-minute show, and he talked about how to do this. And in his comments below his video, he offered a link to a free ebook that talked about how to use AI to create all the descriptions, the keywords, the tags, the titles, all that kind of stuff based on the content of your video. And I downloaded it, I read through it, and I started using his exact formula. And I was amazed at how much better the video just got out there. Now, did it go viral? No, business videos never go viral because there's nothing salacious in them. But you don't care if they go viral. You just want them to get in front of the people who need the help. And so I started getting better at optimizing my individual videos. And I also started taking the link to that source video on YouTube and going to my other sites like LinkedIn and like Google Maps and some of these other local business sites that I'm affiliated with to kind of spread the video around. So it was somebody to, there's a concept out there in the internet. It's where you repurpose content. You find different ways to bring it forth and to spread it around and get people to find it. And so that combination plus getting, pretty good at what I put on YouTube really helped a lot.
Amen to that. Like, this is gold. I will double down on one thing. So many things here, Steve, are like, they resonate so much with me and everything that I see. Your 8%, I'm not surprised. I would have even bet that it could have been like lower than that. But like 90% of people will, right, 90% of people will consume stuff. They will see how this can help. They will be like, oh yeah, that's so great. Never take action on it.
Right.
And right. It's just that when there is a dissonance between this and the same people telling you, oh yeah, I want to grow the business, I want to have a bigger impact, I want to help more people, but it doesn't translate into action, that's why I'm like, that's a bummer. So that's one. Two, I like that you've educated yourself on how to nail properly an acquisition channel and that it brought results. And I'm pretty sure you're talking about it like in 2 minutes, but I'm pretty sure it took days, if not weeks, to figure it out and like find out the nitty-gritty of like how to make it work, following a guide, getting help. I will say one thing on repurposed contents, because I think this is something that a lot of B2B coaches and consultants are struggling with. In essence, B2B coaches, consultants, they get rewarded for being busy. Like, it used to be you get paid by the hour. Now it's more by project. But like when you're fully busy, when you're at full capacity, this is what you want to reach as a consultant and a B2B coach.
Right.
The problem is you don't take time to do anything else. And then you enter into this feast and famine cycle where you work a lot, make lots of money, engagement stops, you have nothing, you do everything you can to get a new engagement, and you repeat that cycle again and again and again. Content repurposing for this specific niche is so underrated right now. And I think YouTube is a great way to do it. I see that you've been on a lot of podcasts as well. Podcast is a great way to repurpose a lot of content. And obviously here I am biased, but I'm going to say it nonetheless. A 1 hour conversation can turn into an audio episode, a video episode, snippets for social media on like 6 social media platforms, that's 18 pieces of content, article, newsletter, trailer, like, and I'm saying this because whether you do this with podcasts or anything else, if you find this format where you can record like valuable content for 30 minutes, 1 hour, but then have a whole content strategy for a week, this is how you make the most out of your time as a B2B coach and consultant.
Okay, so, I will tell you this. I used to give marketing strategy workshops to some of the networking groups I was part of.
Okay.
And, I told them right up the bat, I'm not a ghostwriter. I don't build websites. I don't do any of this kind of, the tactical stuff. What I'm going to share with you are ways to improve your ability to get your message out into your intended market.
Yeah.
And so I figured out that with one 1,200 word article, because most everybody can write an article, okay? With one 1,200 word article, I figured out 32 different ways to repurpose that content. And so, yeah. And I had it laid out on a giant screen and people were taking pictures of it. And I'm thinking, none of these people are going to do any of this stuff with it. Yeah. But to your point, you don't have to every single day scratch your head and say, what am I going to talk about today? You simply need to come up with a core concept that embodies what you do. Yeah. And just rerun it in different formats. You can make a meal out of that for months before you have to come up with another core concept.
That's another expression I'm going to steal. You can make a meal out of that for months. Thanks, Steve. You're like shooting like silver bullets here.
Right.
Okay, tell me a bit more about Google Maps. And I know we are spending a lot of time on marketing here, but I feel you're doing things a bit differently than a lot of guests I have. So I want to spend a bit more time there. Talk to me about Google Maps. Like, why, how do we make it work for B2B coaches and consultants?
Okay. Every end destination website that you go to, you're either going to get there one of two ways. One, you know the exact site. You've saved it as a bookmark or you've entered it into your search queue and you go right to that site. That's probably less than 20%. The other 80%, people use a keyword and hopefully that site pops up. And so when I started realizing that, and I also realized that the vast majority of people that I worked with had no referral for a specific coaching company in mind, they ended up going to Google and typing in business coach or executive coach or leadership coach. Okay. And so, Google has changed their search results page as they do from time to time, but still that local map search always tends to pop up. Now it's like the second frame because they've got AI in there kind of, globbing up the first frame, but people are just used to scrolling down. People don't just stick on frame one anymore. They go look at the whole page. So you've got that map there. If you're in the top 3, you're showing up on the first page. If you're on Google Maps, but you're not in the top 3, you have to hit that little link that says see more. And then it'll give you the entire list of everybody that's doing business in that particular geography. My goal was to be one of the top 3. So I went to school on what does Google need in that Google Map profile in order for you to rise up to one of the top 3. And I just started populating the profile on a regular basis. Posts, articles, videos. I mean, it's interesting that they have this thing where you're only allowed to put a 30-second video on there. And I thought, I have a few, but not anything I'd want to put on there. So how do I get it up to a minute? Well, what I realized was they can't really monitor the time. What they look at is the weight of the file. And a 30-second video has a typical file weight, okay? So if you can figure out how to slightly reduce the quality of your video, you can reduce the file size, and now you can get a 60-second video on there because Google can't tell the difference between that if the file is the same size. So I looked at all these little different methods to put the best that I had on my Google profile, every single day of every single week. I hired a lady who does really good job with this. She worked for me for like 12 years. And so 12 years of daily posting just amps up your profile. And now all of a sudden you're in the top 3. Doesn't matter where anybody's searching. You're always showing up, whether you're in their local market or you're in another state. So that's what I ended up doing. And I realized, because most people that they finally realize they need help from a professional, but they don't know a professional they can call. They're going to search. And if they're going to search, I want to be the first one they look at.
This man has unlimited chargers of silver bullets. So there is something that, in my opinion, too many B2B coach and consultants rely on. It is referrals. And it's normal, because we are rewarded for relying on referrals. Because if we get referrals, it's because we are doing a good job. And the better job you're doing, the more people are going to recommend you, and so on and so forth. Now, there are 2 problems to that. First one is, you don't get to decide when you get new business in. So as soon as you want to start growing and scaling, relying on a referral only doesn't work. And I own an agency. I get it. Like, if I would only get business from referrals, that would be the easiest thing in the world, because like the problem of demand is solved. Right. But it's not working like this. So if you want to be steady, that's fine. If you want to grow, that becomes a problem. You want an acquisition channel. The second problem to that is exactly what you mentioned, Steve. Meaning, yes, a lot of people will ask around when they're looking for a service or help, but some people are just like, they don't know anybody in this space, so they will do their own research. I like that you mentioned Google, because the only nuance I would bring to this is, and I learned this last year when I was organizing a restaurant with my family, and my sister, who's 4 years younger than me, which is not that much, we were looking at like options, and she was doing her research on TikTok. I was doing it on Google. And I was like, how interesting that depending on the generation, you're going to look at a different place. But so the whole point is, in the case of Steve, it is Google and local SEO, but like having that channel where people who don't know anyone in your space are going to search for help like the one you're providing. If you have content there, if you have authority there, you're going to get business. Right. And the last thing I want to double down on is, because you mentioned it, it took 12 years. Now, I'm sure you got results before that, but things take time as well. It's not like, instant, you turn on the lever and then all of a sudden you get millions of leads. It takes time. It takes credibility. People will need to be reinforced that you're the right choice, that you're the right person. They're going to have to consume content, see your face multiple times, and then buy from you.
And look, I will tell you that in the course of working that plan, because you're right, business came sooner than 12 years, but once you get the momentum and the consistency, you really have to do very little to keep it going, okay? Other than maybe change course and come up with a new idea or a new topic or things like that. But I've actually had people tell me after, we've been working a little bit together, that they watched my content, my videos, my podcast appearances, sometimes for 2 or 3 years before they finally decided that they needed to take the plunge and dive in and get my help. So the problem when you're the marketer, you're trying to put your brand and your message out there, you don't know who's watching and listening and reading your content, and you don't know how long they've been doing it. All you know is the day they show up and want to talk, okay, you've got an opportunity in front of you. But you don't always know how long it took to curate that interest for them to just appear and say, yes, let's talk.
Amen to that. Steve, you've been flying over this interview, so I'm going to ask you a bit of a curveball question now.
All right.
What's challenging you right now? What's the thing that, that when you're going to crack that nut, you're going to take GrowthSource coaching to the next level? What's that one thing that you're working on that is challenging you right now?
Well, I will tell you, and this came about, I'd say maybe 6 or 7 years ago. I was part of a mastermind group that was run by a gentleman that I had met at a conference, and he was a very successful hotel management operator. He had a company, And so I joined his group, and because I wanted to learn from him and try to figure out how to do better myself. He brought a guest in one time and talked about his own travel, and he mentioned a term that I'd never heard of before. The guy talked about how he was building this lifestyle business. And so I said, what does that mean? He says, well, you can have a business that completely takes over your life. You hire these legions of people, you open up, locations all over the place. You've got a big corporation going. Or you can have a business that you love and you enjoy and you do well at, but it feeds your personal life. It doesn't overtake it. And I thought, that's what I want. I had been in consumer products manufacturing for 30 years, worked for 4 really good companies, and I'd seen what happened to people that allowed the business and the occupation to completely consume them. Okay. And I probably got there myself once or twice and didn't realize it. And I said, this time around, I want to do something that I'm good at, that I can provide great benefit to other people, and that I just love participating in because I can control it. So what I ended up doing was, instead of trying to figure out how to bring on dozens and dozens of clients, okay, which would require me to hire more coaches and, get all this stuff going, I decided to upscale the kind of client that I'm looking for. I don't work with too many startups anymore. Startups are great people. They're the beginnings of the businesses that we know and use today, but it's the Wild West. And they come and go quickly, and they change and they fall out of favor. And it was too much for me to handle. So I thought, how do I go up the ladder and attract and work with higher quality companies, dealing with people who are really smart and really accomplished, but they've hit that wall and they need somebody from the outside to help them get over that wall. And so that became my focus. Now, the only thing today is, you're asking, what's the challenge in the way, is I'm already doing that now, but I'm finding that the amount of people that come to me is taking me beyond my own capacity. And I hate telling a client that's a good client from a good company, gee, I'd love to work with you, but I can't start you for another 6 months. So my challenge is how to clone more of me. And I'm kind of saying that tongue in cheek, but that's the problem. You build a great reputation and you offer a great service that gets the word out and people want, and you realize you can only help so many of them.
Okay, I'm gonna throw a very stupid and basic idea to that, Steve, but supply and demand, increase prices. You'll make more money for the same time. It's a type of decision, but that could be one option. But I love that you have clear goals, in the sense of, so many people are like, yeah, I want to grow the business, I want to do this, I want to do that. I think being very clear on what you want and being honest with yourself, right? I want a lifestyle business. I want to enjoy my life, enjoy my work. And when that is the objective, the traction and the efforts that you need to put in and the things that you need to put in place are very different than, I want to triple the size of my company in the next 2 years.
Right.
And I think being in line with your goals, so very well-defined goals, in line with those, and taking the actions that are relevant and that will help you achieve this goal, is the way to go. So lucky for you, AI is coming our way. You might be able to create an, Steve Smith AI avatar anytime soon. Maybe I'm talking to one right now.
All right. So you know what? Once I started learning how to use AI, the prompt engineering concept, which works very well. What I started to realize was, a lot of the back end work that I would do with customers could now be done at a higher quality and a much faster rate, just using AI in the right way. So I am actually inputting a lot of that now, and it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing how well that works, as long as you learn how to ask the right questions.
Steve Smith, ladies and gentlemen. Steve, I genuinely think that this was a marketing masterclass for B2B coaching and consulting. So thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders. If people want to find out more about you, see what you do, find you on Google Maps, where should they go?
The best place to go is my website. It's growthsourcecoaching.com. My phone number is on there, my email's on there, and all of my content and the things that they would want to know about me are on there, because I really encourage people to learn as much about me before you make that phone call or before you send that email, because then we'll have a much more friendly, honest, open conversation, because you'll feel more comfortable about who you're talking to.
We'll put all the links in the description, and could not agree more. I can say one thing for sure, Steve, is that you've gained at least one new connection on LinkedIn out of this interview. Me, I just added you.
Love it.
Steve, thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today. It's been really, really fun.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders Podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time. How